What's going on, everybody? As you can see beside me, we're looking at a pretty red day for the Bitcoin miners with the exception of Bitdeer. Bitdeer does have some news today regarding senior convertible notes. It's basically going to fund further growth, but we're not here to talk about Bitdeer. We're going to talk about Griffin Digital. Ticker symbol GRYP. We're also going to talk about the Jackson Hole meeting. We're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we'll see what else we get into. Fed Chair Powell's speech is going to be at Jackson Hole on Friday, and the market has been expecting 100% of at least a 0.25% cut, if not a 0.5% cut. And also we had yesterday's FOMC minutes, which the participants basically say a September rate cut is very likely, is appropriate. And check this out, this is part of the minutes, but nevertheless, participants viewed the incoming data as enhancing their confidence that inflation was moving towards the committee's objective. The vast majority observed that if the data continues to come in about as expected, it would likely be appropriate to ease policy at the next meeting. Many participants commented that monetary policy continued to be restrictive. Although they expressed a range of views about the degree of restrictiveness, participants also noted that ongoing disinflation, with no change in the nominal target range for the policy rate, by itself results in a tightening of monetary policy. And the market has been expecting more likely than not that we are going to get some sort of cut. And the market's been expecting this for over a month now, pretty much. A month ago, you'll see back in July, we had a 3% chance of a 0.5% cut. We had an 88% chance of a 0.25% cut and a 7% chance of just leaving rates where they are. You'll see that now, however, we are basically looking at a full certainty of getting at least a 0.25% cut, if not a 0.5. Now we're just going to keep moving right along. I do want to talk about GRYP, Griffin Digital. They acquired some low cost mining operations for as little as 1 cent per kilowatt hour. But there are some details you need to read about this. There's a $1.5 million acquisition. This includes 2.9 megawatts, which is a very small 59 PH, not EH, 59 PH of Bitcoin mining equipment. It does come fully equipped with assets, including gas power generators, containers, expected to generate about 1 million annually. So this $1.5 million acquisition, they will pretty much pay for after the first year and a half. This is a very small acquisition, but Griffin stock is a pretty small company. But they go on to say, we believe that this acquisition of ultra low cost power is our first step along an identified path of over 500 megawatts of similar low cost power generation opportunities, said Griffin CEO Rob Chang. You might see that name and it might ring a bell. The current post-halving world is requiring Bitcoin miners to secure low-cost power in order to thrive in an increasing global hash rate environment. With the acquisition of this 1 cent power asset and future power generation assets with similar costs, we believe Griffin will enhance its position as a leading low-cost operator with a competitive advantage in a key cost aspect of the Bitcoin mining business. There's something else about this site as well that's very interesting. There's something about flare gas. It's basically a byproduct of oil extraction. It's often burned off and released into the environment, but instead Griffin plans to repurpose this as an energy source for Bitcoin mining. And I quote, by converting this otherwise wasted gas into productive energy, Griffin not only powers its mining operations, but also mitigates environmental impact by lowering carbon emissions that would have been generated through flaring. Griffin's chart is uglier than heck. It has been essentially nothing but downtrend. There have been these small pops along the way, but we are pretty much at lower lows. Consistently over time, it continues to create new lower lows. We just had a 1-to-20 split, and we are now back under $1 again. Their upcoming earnings, no surprise, they are not expecting a profit, and Griffin is expecting a $3.9 million quarter, which would be a drop over this quarter, which is kind of surprising. They are guiding for a decrease in revenue, which is kind of surprising considering this quarter basically contains the halving. Remember, in April was the halving, and this was the first month of this quarter. It might make sense there's a little decrease in revenue quarter over quarter, considering the halving started on April 20. That was already 20 days into the quarter. So this is going to be the first quarter, the quarter we're currently in, is going to be the first quarter that the halving has been in effect from day one till the end of the quarter. So that might explain the decrease in revenue, but there are other miners that are expecting to start turning around and seeing that revenue grow. I would avoid Griffin. I would avoid this until later in the cycle. This could be some kind of an accumulation phase, but I probably wouldn't risk it. You could always set a stop loss at like 60 cents and hope that it doesn't go lower, hope that it stays in this range and starts picking up. One thing you can watch for a breakout is a break of the 200 MA. We did get resistance twice on it, and it did head back down. If we can break the 200 MA, this might change our direction, and soon after we will get our golden cross. The cycle will get very FOMO induced and full of hype, and that's when the stocks like Gryphon and something like Sphere 3D could rally. But it is going to be later in the cycle when the altcoins start going crazy, When Bitcoin has already run and people are trying to disperse the money, that is when the most riskiest of the risky Bitcoin miners will rally, in my opinion. But I can see why someone wouldn't want to touch something like a Griffin Digital or a Sphere 3D. They are very high risk. Now we're going to shift over to Bitcoin really quick. We did see some positive net inflows from the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And this is actually the 5th consecutive day of positive inflows, a $39 million day. Grayscale's mini Bitcoin trust reported 14 million in net inflows. Fidelity and Bitwise also recorded around 10 million in inflows. And iBit recorded an $8 million inflow. Franklin Templeton's fund saw a $3.5 million inflow. And Invesco's BTCO saw 2.46 million inflow. Here's what's really big. Some people are thinking that the spot ETFs have overall been net outflows or it hasn't been a positive for Bitcoin. They have been a huge positive. If it wasn't for the spot Bitcoin ETFs, we would not be looking at all-time high before the halving. That is unheard of. But check this out. Since their launch, the funds have so far accumulated 17.5 billion in total net inflows. Net inflows. Not just volume, not just money going from Grayscale to the other funds, but total inflows, weighing everything in. 17.5 billion, soon $20 billion worth of net inflows have gone into Bitcoin in a matter of like a year. And most of this money is not leaving anytime soon. Next up, Ethereum, they have been seeing outflows. We saw a $17 million outflow, mostly due to Grayscale's ETHE, which saw $31 million in outflows, and the other funds weren't able to eat that up and supply an inflow day. Fidelity's fund recorded the largest inflow of 8 million nearly. Next is Grayscale's mini trust with 4.5 million almost. And then Franklin Templeton's with about $1 million net inflow. I think it will take some time. If you look at Bitcoin and look at Ethereum spot ETF, timeline wise, Ethereum's still in the very early stages. What did we see with the Bitcoin spot ETF? We saw a lull, we saw a boredom, we saw a little bit of a selling off from Grayscale before we went on to rally, before the hype really entered. It took a couple weeks. We had all that hype coming up to the spot ETFs going live, ran up to 49,000, and then we pulled back like to 40,000, I believe. Then we went on to our rally up to new all-time highs. Perhaps we see the same with Ethereum. This initial pullback, Grayscale holders get out of their funds, we get that kind of refresh, and we start seeing overall net inflows, and that brings Ethereum up towards its 52-week highs and soon towards new all-time highs, but that'll take a while. And looking at Bitcoin, Bitcoin keeps getting rejected on the 50 MA. It cannot break above and hold it. On shorter time frames, there was divergences, so ignore these lines. They don't make sense on the daily, but on the 4-hour and on the 1-hour, we were seeing these bearish divergences up here, kind of a sign that we were due to pull back. We can't keep over the 50 on the RSI. That is something I'm watching. Some people might not care about it. But yeah, right now, I mean, the 50 MA is going to be a crucial level to break. Once we can break that, we can then try to break our 200 MA. And then eventually we will have these flip to a golden cross once we can stay above them for long enough. But we did recently pull back under them. We have been just in this choppy range. And we finally did break under the 200 MA and the 50 MA again. So now it is a matter of reclaiming them, reclaiming that 62,000 as well, and starting to push up towards our resistance on this descending, broadening channel, or just channel. Now I'll end this video on a few interesting things about Bitcoin. Something you should watch for in the cycle. Look at every Q4 of the halving cycle. 2016, a 58% run. 2020, 168% run. A lot of that was due to stimulus and such. And then here we are coming up to Q4 of the next halving, the halving we are currently in. Will we see a positive quarter? I do think so. And our buddy Peter Brandt being very bearish, saying that the new all-time high might not be in the cards. Just because. Because of why? Because this might soon become the longest time post-halving in history for a new all-time high. We still have to get to the 24th week and 25th week. We are currently at the 23rd week. He's basically jumping the gun a little bit early. He should simply wait another 2 weeks, and then he can say, I told you so or not. But a lot of this also is due, if we do get a longer time to see new cycle highs, a lot of this could be due to the simple fact that we saw a new all-time high before the halving. That does not normally happen. If anything, this makes Bitcoin even more bullish. Or you could look at it like the cycles are kind of being front-run. We might get a sooner cycle top this cycle. Maybe we top out in, somewhere in the middle of 2025 or maybe even early 2025. Always do your own research. Always read between the lines. Don't fall for just a headline. Look at the numbers. Follow the cycle. We're in the halving year. Q4, we always get a run. Every single halving we have seen this. And we are right in line. I mean, look at where we are. We're right in line with every cycle. Nothing out of the ordinary, in my opinion. And hey, things could even be more exciting than previous cycles because of the spot Bitcoin ETFs and all the inflows there. In the end, we are in one of the best assets known to man. The vast majority is already in circulation, and we are fighting for the last 6% of Bitcoin over the next roughly 100 years or more. But let me know, guys, am I too bullish, too bearish on Bitcoin? Or do you guys see it like I do, a scarce asset that is only over time going to go up and to the right? Of course, there will be the bear cycles along the way, but those will be our opportunities to reaccumulate, wait for the cycle top, rinse and repeat. But let me know how you feel about the Bitcoin miners today. It's a bit of a red day, obviously. A good time to be a buyer, in my opinion, as we get later and later into this cycle. Keep in mind that the farther we get, the more high risk it becomes. But thanks as always for watching, guys, and have a good rest of your day.